Following testimony is from my cousin Khamis, who is displaced in the Gaza Strip. And while this has been my family's experience, please take a moment to recognize that this is the reality for over 2 million people suffering from genocide and constant terror at the hands of the Israeli occupation, with little to no medical resources. And had Khamis's injury happened now, 402 days into the genocide and destruction of Gaza and her people, he most likely would not have survived. In Khamis's own words, he addresses you all today. Prior to this genocide, me and my family lived in northern Gaza. The night we were displaced, the surrounding houses were being targeted so intensely that it shattered the windows and blew the hinges off the doors. Covered in glass and debris, we fled our home at 10 p.m. Under the cover of night, as heavy bombing, destruction, and terror surrounded us, we went to the nearest hospital, Al-Quds Hospital, run by the Palestinian Red Crescent. We spent a terrorizing night there. The hospital was overcrowded with displaced civilians, fear written on their faces. Hundreds of people crowded the hospital's corridors and courtyards, looking for a bit of comfort, unable to find any. After midnight, the doctors told us the IOF threatened to bomb the hospital, and we had to evacuate by morning. Everyone looked at their relatives and friends with eyes full of fear, asking, "Where do we go?" But no one had an answer. By morning, my family and I had fled to the southern part of the Gaza Strip, as the Israeli regime had claimed it was a safe zone. We went to Nusayrat, where we didn't know anyone, but we found a kind man who was helping displaced families. We stayed in his building for 17 days without sufficient water, food, and no basic necessities. After being without water for 5 days, nearly dying of thirst and hunger, the water finally arrived. It was a grueling and exhausting day filling the water tanks in the unbearable heat. My friends and I, exhausted from the heat, sat down to rest. Some of us passed out from sheer exhaustion, and then suddenly, the airstrikes came. The ground shook so violently, and we didn't understand what was happening because we were in the designated safe zone. The building shook so much that it sank 9 meters into the earth. Those of us who had fallen asleep, my friends that were beside me, died, buried alive while uttering their shahada. I watched them helplessly as they took their last breaths, and I thought to myself, I was going to die too, trapped under the rubble for hours, unable to move, unable to help myself. Surely I'd be next. By some miracle, the EMTs and civil defense teams were able to pull me out just before I took my last breath. They dug through the debris, lifting heavy rubble, and managed to pull me out with great difficulty. I was taken to Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital. But there were not enough resources for treatment. There were no imaging devices or medical tools to assess my broken body. There were so many wounded people that many of us were lying on the floor screaming in pain, but the doctors could do nothing to help us. I lay on the ground, bleeding, unable to move even my toes or feel my body. It was only when I was transferred to the European hospital in Khan Yunis that an international team of doctors took x-rays and discovered that my spine was broken and required surgery. I was devastated. Even here, there were not enough resources to alleviate my suffering. There were so many injured civilians, the operating room was in constant use. After unbearable pain and desperate cries for help, the doctors performed the spinal surgery. Beforehand, the doctors warned me that it would be risky, as there was little space between the break and my spinal cord. They told me that if something went wrong, the responsibility would fall entirely on me. I signed the consent form, placing my trust in God. What more did I have to lose? I underwent a 4-hour-long surgery. They inserted plates and screws into my spine. By the grace of God, the surgery was successful but not perfect. I still need a medical brace for my back and physical therapy, but neither is accessible due to the ongoing genocide. I suffered day and night in all weather from the pain caused by the plates in my back. The doctors informed me that this pain will now be a permanent part of my life. I am 26 years old. I am an innocent civilian who once studied law, dreaming of becoming a judge to make this unjust world a little bit more bearable. I graduated from university with ambitions, goals, and a passion for life. Now I sit with my family in a tent, unable to carry heavy items because of the damage to my spine. My sole focus is how we will survive this madness. We demand that all human rights organizations and international bodies look at my case and the tens of thousands of others with mercy and compassion. We are human beings. We deserve life. We are not human animals. For you, our experiences are simply a story. For 2 million of us, it is our daily reality. Take action now. Divest from Israel. Call for an arms embargo. Demand that aid be allowed in for the 2 million people forced to endure this genocide for over 400 days. Okay. The next testimony is from the Shmili family in Gaza. Can you imagine living in a war that continues to destroy everything familiar and beloved? I have lived through days that I cannot describe with enough words, filled with constant fear, unhealable pain, and loss I was unprepared to bear. The war did not just tear apart the surroundings, but it also destroyed every sense of safety that was once part of my life, turning my home into a place of perpetual terror. I lost so much in unforgettable moments, like an undeniable stain in my memory. The deaths of my uncle and all his children, his daughter and his granddaughter, were tragedies that shattered my soul. At that moment, I felt like I was standing on the edge of the world with nothing to bring me back. And that day was not the end. 2 months later, I lost my grandmother, who was an angel to me, a friend who brought me peace amidst the chaos of life. I remember that night, the sounds of shells tearing through the stillness of darkness, smoke rising in every corner as we were trapped in an endless nightmare. We tried to escape, hoping for survival even for a few moments, but before we could leave, my aunt climbed to the roof to get her children's clothes. Her request was not much. She was just a mother seeking a little warmth for her kids. She did not realize she would not return. They targeted her mercilessly. How can this world ignore these souls? Innocent in every sense of the word. Yet they were not spared. We fled to Rafah, but Rafah was far from a safe haven. We spent long nights in the streets, the bitter cold wrapping around us, our children shivering from the cold and fear. We had no choice but to light a fire, a desperate attempt to warm ourselves amidst the relentless rain that showed no mercy for our vulnerability. But even the fire could not soothe their cries from the cold. We set up a tent as a last resort, but the rain seeped in from every side. And yet these tents were better than sleeping in the open. We were tired of displacement, tired of moving from place to place in search of safety that seemed like a mirage. Our lives became harder than fiction, living as if we were in an endless nightmare. Drones hovered above us as if searching for more victims, and Apache helicopters circled like terrifying specters, launching enormous missiles indiscriminately without mercy. Houses crumbled and flames consumed what little remained. Gunfire echoed everywhere, shells from all directions, where there was no safety or refuge. Every minute here is surrounded by fear and anticipation. Every sound, every movement, everything could be the last we see. We live in darkness, hiding from everything, trying to remain invisible, as if being invisible is the only way to survive. The land itself seems to scream in pain. This land that was once full of life has now become a battlefield where only the dead find a place for themselves. We wonder in moments of silence between the bombings if we will ever see peace again, or if this land is destined to remain a graveyard for generations to come. We wait, we hope, but deep down fear persists. Fear that the war will last longer than us and will consume us, leaving no one to remember who we were or the dreams we held. Fear wraps around our necks like a choking chain, tightening with every breath we take, with no escape. Death hovers above us like a merciless predatory bird with its dark, heavy wings, watching us, waiting for the right moment to swoop down on us. Every day we feel we are living on borrowed time, asking ourselves with trembling hearts and fear-filled eyes, how long will this war continue to devour Gaza? How long will we live under the shadow of constant death, waiting for an end that draws closer with each passing moment? The air we breathe has become heavy with fear, and the uncertainty of who will live to see tomorrow weighs upon us like an unbearable burden. Will I be the witness to the end of this never-ending nightmare, or will I be one of its victims, leaving the land to bear witness to my grave, just another casualty beneath its soil? Each passing day feels like a miracle just to survive, as if we are battling an unbeatable force. The streets that were once filled of life and laughter are now empty, stained with the blood of innocence, echoing with the sounds of destruction. The hope that once lit our hearts has begun to fade, until it has become a mere glimmer, like a distant mirage that appears and disappears as soon as we try to grasp it. Yet, with trembling hands, we cling to the fragile threads of life, even though they seem on the verge of breaking at any moment. We wait for the day that may never come, continuing to watch, living on blood-soaked land, wondering, will there come a day when we witness the birth of peace, or will this land remain cursed, haunted by the ghosts of war and destruction forever? Thank you.